The last time the All Blacks played in San Diego was in 1980, and on that occasion there was 10,000 people packed into the Chargers Stadium to watch them play. This year in 2024 they're playing Fiji at the Snapdragon Stadium. Over 30,000 people had sold out the place, and it was going to be a fantastic occasion as the two South Pacific nations took each other on for the first time on this neutral ground in San Diego. In this video I'm going to review the game between the New Zealand All Blacks and Fiji that was played last night. G'day and welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark. If you haven't been here before, my name is Mark. I'm a retired Kiwi bloke living here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico, and I want to welcome you all to my review show today. And remember, if you like my content, why not hit the subscribe button and stick around, be part of this wonderful global rugby community we're growing here on the channel. This channel is only a year old, and the only reason I started the channel is I want to play a small role, if I can, in helping the great game of rugby to grow across the world. So there's not too many Kiwi blokes in Mexico making videos about rugby. Now in this video I'm going to talk about that great game that was played last night in San Diego between the New Zealand All Blacks and Fiji. It was the first time that these two teams had played at this location, and it was bound to be a cracker. Now before the game got underway, a lot of people were talking about how hot it was going to be in San Diego yesterday. They had some hot days leading up to this game day, but thankfully for everybody concerned, the temperatures went down a little bit. It was a nice balmy 25 degrees at kickoff time. That's Celsius, of course, and pretty good conditions underfoot, as this stadium has a very hard-packed sand core base on the grass. So it was going to be a good platform for both teams. Both teams obviously doing their national anthems, and also the All Blacks doing the haka, the Fijians doing the thimbi. And we saw a great crowd in the stadium. It was a sold-out crowd, over 30,000 people in the stadium. The last time the All Blacks played in San Diego, which is the only other time they've played there, there was 10,000 people in attendance at the Chargers Stadium on that particular occasion. The other great thing that happened before the game kicked off, there was a moment's silence for the recently passed All Black forward Norm Hewitt, All Black number 938. And the crowd and the players respected Norm Hewitt, a great New Zealander, a great All Black, and it was great to see that little bit of recognition in last night's game for Norm Hewitt and his family. Now the game got underway, and we saw in the first minute the All Blacks getting possession and really starting to put it to Fiji straight away. So we saw that the All Blacks were going to be looking at maintaining possession, building control, several phases of play, and that's how they started off. But one of the things that caught my eye in that first couple of minutes of the game was Damian McKenzie. Now a lot of you have your own perspectives on Damian McKenzie. Look, I look at it this way: if you're going to build a team of rugby players that are going to win the Rugby World Cup, you need to be critical. You need to make sure you're getting the best performance out of each of the players in every single position over a period of time. That's what it takes to win a Rugby World Cup. So while you might hear me being rather critical about some of the players in the video today, that's the way that I'm looking at it. I want to be very, very harsh, because I want the All Blacks to win the next Rugby World Cup. And if they're going to do that, they have to be critical about some of the performances that some of the players are putting out on the park week in, week out. Now, one of the things that I've been watching with Damian McKenzie since he's been starting in the 10 jersey is that kick he puts up in general play that's not contestable, and he did that in the first 2 minutes of this game as well. He put a kick up, it was too far forward. Either Caleb Clark or Sevu Reece were not able to contest the ball at all. It gave the ball to the Fijians and gave them an opportunity to bring the ball back and start an attacking phase against the All Blacks. So right off in the first couple of minutes, that was something that I noticed from Damian McKenzie. By the time we got to the 5th minute mark of this game, it was interesting to see what the Fijian strategy was. They were trying to play for territory, and when they did get the ball, they unfortunately kicked it away. And I think that's a bad strategy move on behalf of Fiji. I think they've got so much talent in their rugby team that they need to be keeping ball in hand, and they need to go through the different structures. But on this occasion, early in the game, they kicked the ball away, gave the ball to New Zealand, and New Zealand were able to make a counter-offensive move. So not such a good strategy from Fiji. On the other hand, the All Black defence was very good. So when Fiji did get the ball, they tried to run it. New Zealand were chopping them down, And early in the game we saw great defense from Anton Leonard-Brown and also from Billy Proctor as well. We only had to wait 8 minutes into the game before we got the first points and scoring of the game, and it was a try to the All Blacks, and it went to Caleb Clark, but it was really made up by Damian McKenzie. He was able to get through a gap, put Clark away, and it was a very, very good All Black try. Now, I had mentioned in my preview video before this game that if the All Blacks got an early score in the game, it was going to put a lot of immense pressure on the Fijians to try and stay in the game. So I think that was a really critical execution from the All Blacks to be able to get that try early in the game and put themselves on the front foot. Damian McKenzie got over a great conversion of the try, and before we knew it, the All Blacks were out to 7 points to 0 after just 8 minutes of the game. Now, as the All Blacks got more and more possession from the kickoff and in the next few minutes of the game, one of the things that became obvious for me was that this Fijian defence was nothing like what we've seen from England in New Zealand over the last 2 test matches. The All Blacks were getting time to make decisions, and Damian McKenzie in particular was having choices given to him on what way he was able to go and how he was able to use the ball and distribute it to the New Zealand backs. And this was a huge difference that was allowing the All Blacks to play a different style of game. So early in the game I recognised that there's a big gulf between teams like England, who are able to use that rush defence against New Zealand, versus a team like Fiji, who haven't been able to get that defensive pattern into their playmaking at this stage of their evolution. As a result of that lack of pressure, we saw Cortez Ratama doing some really good things for the All Black. He was clearing the ball out really well, and around the 10th minute mark he made a little darting run that made a significant difference, turned over the ball back to the New Zealanders for next phase of play. And I was pretty impressed with the way that Ratama had started this game. Already in the early stages I saw enough there to tell me that this guy is made for that position for the All Blacks. Unlike Finlay Christie, who's too slow for me and just takes too much time to get things working within his game management of the game, and that's one of the problems that the All Blacks face when Finlay Christie's on the field. Ratama's a different beast. He seems to be intuitive around the game of rugby and can make these decisions very quickly, and he's also technically very efficient, so he gets the ball out very fast. A good start to the game for Cortez Ratama. And it was that man, Cortez Ratama, who in the 14th minute made a great darting run, got over the line for the All Blacks and scored the All Blacks' second try in this game. It was a very, very good move. He was very well aware of what's going on, and as this game was going on, I was enjoying the performance we were seeing from Cortez Ratama. Damian McKenzie got the conversion over, and after 13 minutes of the game, the All Blacks were out to 14 points to 0 against Fiji in San Diego. We got to 16th minute in the game and Fiji started to show a little bit of promise. When they did get the ball, they looked dangerous. They looked like they could get through the All Black backline, and it was great kick across field by Armstrong Ravula. And if you don't know, he's a cousin of Richie Mo'unga, so he's got some talent in the bloodline, that's for sure. So he did a great kick across the field. It was pushed back into play by one of the Fijian players, and Botitu, the fullback for Fiji, went over and scored their first try in the game, and it was an absolute cracker. It was a great kick pass across the field from Armstrong Ravula, and it was well handled by, I think it was Semi Radradra, who got the ball back in to Botitu, who went over for Fiji's first try. So after 20 minutes of the game, it was 14 points to 5 in favour of the All Blacks. The conversion on this occasion was missed. We got to the 20-minute mark in the game, and one of the things that I was really looking forward to watching in this game was how the All Blacks' new look centre pairing of Anton Leonard-Brown and Proctor were going in this game. And by this stage of the game, they were doing very, very well. In fact, Proctor looked way more creative than what we've seen from Rieko Ioane in the first 2 games of the All Blacks this season against England. And Anton Leonard-Brown, well, I hadn't seen him start a game like this before in his All Black history. He was playing absolutely fantastically. He was hungry for the ball, and he was really breaking through the Fijian defensive line. So great start to the game for both of those players. And it was only an extra minute in the 22nd minute that we saw Proctor actually go over and score his first try in an All Black jersey. So always a great thing to see a debutant scoring their first try for the All Blacks, and Proctor went over and fully deserved that try. It was a great build up to the try. It was a backline move. That ball came out to Proctor. He found himself getting through a gap, and scored a great try. The conversion was unsuccessful from Damian McKenzie, so at this stage the All Blacks were out to 19 points to 5. Just a few minutes before half time, and a couple of big points in the game were going to occur before half time. The first one was there was going to be a great try by Ardie Savea. It was a tap kick penalty from the All Blacks. They set it up nicely. Savea got the ball about 5 meters out from the line. There was no one in World Rugby that was going to stop him. But the great thing about Savea's try was his body position and how he got down and got himself over the line with the Fiji defence waiting for him. It was a very, very good try. McKenzie was successful with the conversion, and the All Blacks were out by 26 points to 5. But there were going to be two more big things that happened in the first half before we got to half time, and on the 36th minute of the game we saw that man Cortez Ratama get tackled by one of the Fijians. There was nothing malice in the tackle. He went down and he really crunched his head and his shoulder against this very hard-packed sand core grass that's in the stadium at Snapdragon Stadium. And unfortunately for Ratama, he had to leave the field for the All Blacks, and we saw young Noah Hotham come on, the young 21-year-old who was getting his first cap for the All Blacks as well. So the All Blacks' bad luck around their halfback position continues. Of course, we've got Cam Roigard out, got PJ Perenara out, and now Cortez Ratama is another one that's been sidelined with an injury. We'll have to wait and see how he is. I haven't had any word about that at this stage, but that was very unlucky for Ratama. He was playing exceptionally well in the first half of this game, and for me he just looks like he's someone that slots into this All Black team at halfback very well. He's got a bit of an Aaron Smith feel about him for me, Cortez Ratama, and that can only be a very, very good thing. And then in the last minute of play before half time, we saw Fiji possibly get over for a try. And two things I want to point out about this is that Fijian handling was a little bit insecure. He dropped the ball over the line, didn't force the ball down with pressure. But also I took notice of the tackle, and it was from Damian McKenzie in cover. He went high on the Fijian winger instead of going low or in the midriff, and as a result of that he slid off the Fijian player, and if the Fijian player had forced the ball, it would have been a try to Fiji. So something on a defensive level from Damian McKenzie there. Don't start to think I've got something in for the guy. I was just watching him very intensely in this game. He's usually very good in the back part for defence. On this occasion though, he went high against the player and almost cost the All Blacks a try. So we went to half time 26 points to 5. It was a pretty dominant display from the All Blacks in that first half, but again I think a lot of this came down to the amount of time they were given by this Fiji team. And as a result of that, they were able to put those points on the board, make easier decisions, and actually have time to get up through the defence and look at creative opportunities. Against England and South Africa and some other top nations in the world, I don't think the All Blacks are going to get away with this kind of time, and that's going to be a problem unless they can find solutions. So at half time, I think Scott Razor Robertson and the All Black coaching crew would have been pretty happy with what they saw, particularly from the debutants on the All Black side. As I said, Proctor and Cortez Ratama were playing very, very well, but also Williams in the forwards was doing a good job. Other players that stood out for me, Fletcher Newell was doing his usual great stuff in the scrums without being really noticed. Savea had a huge first half. He was doing some big things. Every time he got the ball, he made a busting run upfield, getting 10 or 15 metres and getting the ball back for the All Blacks. Beauden Barrett was doing good things at the back, and it just seems as though he's a settling ingredient, isn't he, in the New Zealand backline. I think he gives Damian McKenzie a little bit of comfort knowing that he's there and able to cover things. I saw too many wayward kicks from McKenzie in that first half. There was at least 3 that I counted where they were uncontestable, and it just gave the ball away to the opposition. Again, if the All Blacks do this to a South Africa, or they do this to a France, or they do this to an England or Ireland, they're going to be in trouble because those teams are able to bring it back and put the All Blacks under a lot of pressure. Fiji, unfortunately on this occasion, they weren't able to do that. So for Fiji in this first half, I think it was a good performance. They were just being unstuck a little bit by unclinical finishes. When they did get the ball, the odd pass was going to ground. They put multiple phases of play together that looked absolutely outstanding. but then they were just let down in the end by a drop pass or a pass that was going wayward to the player who was coming in support. And this is the difficult thing, and I'm sure Mick Byrne is doing his best job with this Fiji team, and it's an incredible team. I've always said to myself that I think this Fiji team is one of the most difficult teams to coach in world rugby, and the reason for that is because they've got so much natural talent, and you don't want to take that away from them, but you know that you need to create structures and get these players to create platforms that enable them to use that talent. And it seems to be one of the coaching challenges that every coach has had with Fiji since I can remember back to the 1960s. So I hope Mick Byrne is able to sort this out, because it's very difficult to get that balance right between allowing these players to use that natural brilliant athletic talent they've got, but also creating the structures and the scrums and the lineouts and the mauls and the breakdowns for them to be able to use the ball. And that was the biggest difference I saw in this first half between the Fijians and the All Blacks versus what I saw against England and the All Blacks. The England came to the game against the All Blacks, or the series against the All Blacks, with much more technical superiority than what we were seeing from Fiji in that first half. Now, we got underway in the second half and we saw the All Blacks make a mistake straight away from the kickoff. They dropped the ball. A little bit unusual, but that was something that they need to look at as well. They need to be able to secure the ball, obviously, from restarts. But we didn't have to wait long in the second half until the All Blacks were back on the scoreboard. It was in the 44th minute of the game, and Sevu Reece got a fantastic try for the All Blacks. That put the All Blacks out to 31 points to 5. The conversion from McKenzie was another cracker, 33 points to 5. And I'll tell you that Damian McKenzie was kicking very well from the tee in this game. He seems to sort it out his time allocation, and he was kicking some very, very good goals in the game so far. So a good try from the All Blacks. The downside of that was Fiji fell off a couple of tackles. Again, the defensive line needs to be sure. And as I said, they'd missed 30 tackles in that first half of rugby, so you can't afford to do that against a team like New Zealand. We got to the 48th minute of the game. We saw Fiji get some possession for a little bit of time, and they started to put multiple phases together, and they looked very, very dangerous. A couple of their big forwards running directly up the inside channel against the All Blacks defence and starting to put them under a little bit of pressure. But unfortunately, once again, we saw the Fijians either drop the ball or have no amount of support when they were doing those multiple phases. The All Blacks were good in the breakdown as well. We saw Blackadder doing some good work. Luke Jacobson was in there, and Adi Savia before he was replaced as well by Wallace Satiti, and that was a great replacement, seeing Wallace Satiti coming on, the young 21-year-old coming on for his first game for the All Blacks. So it was a good opportunity, and around the 50th minute mark, Scott Razor Robertson started to make the changes for the All Blacks. We saw Ethan de Groot come on for Williams. Williams played very well in the forwards. I thought the scrum was magnificent from the All Blacks. They really took it to the Fijians. They were dominant in that area. And when you can bring on a guy like Ethan de Groot, well, you probably know it's only going to continue. So I think the All Blacks have really got some great choices now in their front row. And it's going to be interesting to see what Scott Razor Robertson does for the squad that he's going to announce to play in the Rugby Championship competition. We got to the 53rd minute of the game, and it was one of those situations where we had a try and then a no try, because Caleb Clark had gone over after some great work by the All Blacks, but unfortunately Scott Barrett had intervened by taking out a Fijian player close to the maul who was not attached to the maul, and therefore the try was quite rightly disallowed. Scott Barrett in the wrong place at the wrong time with that one. We got to the 58th minute mark of the game. We saw a brilliant piece of play by the All Blacks, and in particular from their debutants. We saw Satiti take the ball up, we saw Tosi take the ball up, and then the ball came out to Ethan de Groot, who was close to the line and got himself over for a great All Black try. It was easily converted by Damian McKenzie, and the All Blacks went out to 40 points to 5. And there was still 20 minutes left in the game, so the danger here for Fiji was this game was going to really open up and the All Blacks were going to put some more points on the board. The changes kept coming for the All Blacks in terms of players anyway, and Sam Derry came on, the big Auckland lock who was making his debut in an All Black jersey, and within the first couple of minutes he did a great turnover and got the ball for the All Blacks, so that was a great way to start his game. Now, another thing the All Blacks needed to clean up in this game was their line-out performance, and up until this stage of the game the line had been working very well. They seem to have sorted out their problems, particularly with their call. But one of the things we need to remember, there was no Maro Itoje in this game. So there was no one putting the pressure on the All Blacks in the line out like we saw in the 2 tests against England in New Zealand. But you can only play what's in front of you, and the All Blacks did a good job of that. They cleaned up their line out performance. They got a lot of ball off the top as well as the back. They used a couple of different players in that scenario. We saw Scott Barrett doing some good work. We saw Luke Jacobson getting a good couple of holds as well, and Tupu Vai was in there doing a good performance. So overall, from a line out performance for the All Blacks, I think they did a pretty good job in this game. So with 10 minutes to go in the game, we got to the 70th minute mark, and Fiji got the ball and looked very dangerous. In fact, they put 12 phases of play together, but they couldn't put a try on the board. They couldn't get past the New Zealand defence, which was a little bit unfortunate for them. They looked very, very good. They were running the ball wide. They were bringing it back into the inside forwards and getting closer and closer to the All Blacks line. But credit to the All Blacks, they held them out and showed some good defence, and then finally came up with the steal and cleared the ball away from their own 22. It was good. Jordie Barrett had come on at that stage to be in the centres, and he had an opportunity as the All Blacks broke down the right hand side of the field. He had a decision to make. He either passed out to the outside winger and put him away, or he passed inside to Wallace Satiti. He tried to do a reverse hand pass out to the winger. It didn't work. The ball went on the ground, and a pretty sure try would have been scored by Wallace Satiti if Jordie Barrett had made the decision to go inside. So that was one of the last attacking opportunities for the All Blacks in this game, but there was one more to come, and it was to come to one of their debutants. And it was on the back of some other fierce All Black attacking play, and the forwards were doing some great work in the later minutes of this game in terms of being a general player. I was thoroughly impressed throughout this game. Asafo Amua had a very, very big game. Really like this guy. I think he should be starting for the All Blacks. We'll have to wait and see what happens going forward. But it was that other man, George Bell from the Canterbury Crusaders. He looks a bit like a young Finn Baxter for England. This guy, those two look like two teenagers, that's for sure. But he went over for his first try for the All Blacks, and you could see how much it meant to him and all of his players around him. They gave him a very, very big hug when he got over the line. It was a great try, a great moment for George Bell, scoring his first try for the All Blacks, and I'm sure that's going to give him a lot of confidence going forward. And that was the last major play of the game. It was the last scoring of the game. The All Blacks had got over and scored their 7th try, and the conversion was successful. So the All Blacks ended up with a final score in this game of 47 points to 5 against Fiji. So what was my overall thought about this game and some of the players? Well, I've decided that early next week I'm going to make a player rating video about the All Blacks of this game, but I'll just give you my initial thoughts on this one. Damian McKenzie, for me, he's not the guy, and I'm going to be rather critical. I think there was too many chances throughout this game where we saw him making mistakes about his game management of the way that he plays the game. He chose to kick the ball, uncontestable kicks that didn't lead to any offensive play for the All Blacks. In fact, it gave the possession away. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, if McKenzie does this against the top teams in World Rugby, the All Blacks are going to be punished, and they can't afford to give the ball away. On other occasions, I saw him making lapses in judgment around the distribution of the ball, but on some occasions he made a brilliant decision and he got through the Fijian defensive line. But I want to see how McKenzie goes against the Damien Diolandi or Jesse Creel and that level of play, or a Bundy Aki, because that's where the real difference is going to be told. And I don't think Damian McKenzie is going to be the best choice for the All Blacks at number 10. On the flip side, looking at some real positives that came out of this game, I thought all of the debutants played very, very well for the amount of time that they got in the game. I think Satiti is going to be a huge player for the All Blacks in years to come, and taking him on a trip like this and giving him an opportunity through the Rugby Championship, I think is going to be a great thing for All Black Rugby. I hope Cortez Ratama is okay, because this guy is solid. He's the type of halfback we need in there, and I think he needs to be our starting halfback at the moment. Caleb Clark really impressed me on the wing for the All Blacks in this game, and I liked his energy, and I liked the way that he was really bustling in and making his big bulky frame a real nuisance to the Fijians, and that's something we didn't see from Mark Talia, not because he hasn't got a bulky frame, but we just didn't see that amount of penetration from Mark Talia. And as it stands today, I would like to see Caleb Clark in the All Blacks starting line out. I think Sevu Reece had a good game on the other side, did some of a typical Sevu Reece stuff, and I think that's warranted to keep him in the game. We did see Nawara come on later in the game, didn't have an opportunity unfortunately with any open play, but he did get a run for a few minutes from the All Blacks. But I was excited to see the likes of George Bell and Dari getting in there for the All Blacks. I think they performed very well. Again, the Lucies had a good game, but again, this wasn't the kind of opposition that the All Blacks will be facing in the Rugby Championship. And I think that's something that Scott Robertson and his team really need to look at, because whilst they might have looked really good in this game against Fiji, the competition is going to keep going up in terms of performance and their ability to close down this All Black team. So overall, I think it was a very good performance by the All Blacks. They could only play who was in front of them. Fiji turned up with a lot of passion. They unfortunately didn't get enough ball to really show us what they could do on a consistent basis throughout this game. And again, their clinical precision was letting them down throughout the game at key moments. I think if the Fijians had got back into the game in the first half, it would have given them a lot more inspiration and motivation. But as they saw the All Blacks starting to pile on the tries, I think they got a little bit deflated. I don't mean that they stopped playing, no, not at all. They were still going in the 80th minute. But I just think when you see a team scoring more and more tries against you, it can't help to put you on the back foot. And I think that's what we saw a little bit from Fiji yesterday. I was impressed with Armstrong Ravula at their number 10. I think he did a really good job. Caleb Muntz came on at the end of the game and he did some good things as well. So I think in the number 10 position, Fiji have a couple of really good players there that they can go forward with. Unfortunately, we saw Frank Lamani go off with a really bad injury in the first half. Kuro Volley came on. We all know him. We saw him in the Rugby World Cup last year. And he settled the ship down a little bit, I thought, for Fiji. He played pretty well for the rest of the game. I think Fiji have got a couple of really good halfbacks in their midst. But for me, it was around the technical ability of the forwards for Fiji. They just weren't able to step up and compete with the All Blacks at that level, either in the scrums or in the lineouts. And this really cost them a lot of valuable possession. From that, the All Blacks were able to build multiple phases throughout the game, be creative in the backs. And what I saw... So there we go, there's my review on the All Blacks win against Fiji by 47 points to 5 in San Diego last night. I'd love to hear your comments about the game. Let me know who you thought played well on both sides of the field, and look forward to reading all your comments about this one. Now, I'm going to be back over the weekend with some more videos on the rugby. We've got Springboks versus Portugal today. That's going to be an interesting game. And of course, the Wallabies take on Georgia this weekend. So we'll have to wait and see whether Joe Schmidt gets his third win on a trot with the Australian Wallabies. Thank you very much for watching my videos. I'll be back again really soon. Until the next time, stay well, stay safe, everybody. Keep enjoying your rugby across the world. And it's time to say adios from beautiful Mexico. Until next time, bye for now.